Una stood at the back of the auction hall with her arms crossed. The room smelled like rust and old metal. Dust floated in the yellow light that came from broken lamps on the ceiling. She counted the credits in her pocket without looking. 14. That was all she had left in the universe. The auction hall was on Outpost Kira 7, a station so far from the main trade routes that most ships did not bother to stop. The walls were gray and stained. The seats were hard plastic, and half of them were cracked. About 30 beings sat in the room. Most of them were not human. Una saw 2 tall insect-like creatures in the front row. Their eyes were black and shiny like glass. Behind them sat a group of traders with blue skin and 4 arms each. They wore expensive clothes and laughed at something on their screens. In the corner, a massive creature with scales and a long tail watched everything with cold yellow eyes. That was Consul Voss. Everyone knew him. He controlled the black markets in this sector. He bought things cheap and sold them for 100 times more. The auctioneer was a small alien, with gray skin and too many teeth. He spoke fast and waved his thin arms as he announced each item. Lot 45A, storage unit on deck 12. Contains old mining equipment. Starting bid, 20 credits. Someone raised a hand. The bidding went up to 50 credits. Una did not move. Lot 46, a cargo bay on deck 9. Water damage. Some items may be salvageable. Starting bid, 15 credits. More hands went up. Una watched and waited. She had come here for one reason. 3 days ago, her friend Hannah had sent her a message. Hannah was a hacker who sold information to survive. She had found something strange in the station's old records. A hangar on the lower deck had been sealed for 200 years. Nobody knew what was inside. The environmental sensors showed warnings, so everyone assumed it was toxic waste or broken machinery. It was listed in the auction as Lot 47B. Starting bid, 3 credits. The auctioneer cleared his throat. Lot 47B maintenance hangar on the condemned lower deck. Sealed. Environmental hazard warnings on file. The Bureau takes no responsibility for contents. Starting bid, 3 credits. Nobody moved. The insect creatures made clicking sounds that might have been laughter. The blue-skinned traders did not even look up from their screens. Consul Voss yawned and showed his sharp teeth. 3 credits, the auctioneer repeated. Anyone? Una raised her hand. Every head in the room turned to look at her. She was small and thin, wearing old work clothes that had been patched too many times. Her black hair was tied back in a messy knot. She looked like what she was, a human salvage trader with nothing to lose. The auctioneer blinked his large eyes. The human bids 3 credits. Any other bids? Silence. Sold to the human for 3 credits. Una walked to the front and paid. The auctioneer handed her a data chip with the access codes. His smile showed all of his teeth. Good luck, he said. You will need it. She did not answer. She just took the chip and left out. Her brother Taiho was waiting outside. He was 5 years older than her, with broad shoulders and kind eyes. His left leg was mechanical below the knee, the result of a mining accident 3 years ago. The prosthetic was old and cheap. It clicked when he walked. Did you get it? He asked. Una held up the chip. 3 credits. Taiho shook his head and smiled. You are either very smart or very stupid. Maybe both, she said. They walked through the station together. The lower decks were dark and empty. The lights flickered. The air was cold and smelled like chemicals. Most people avoided this area. The station managers had sealed it off years ago when the budget for repairs ran out. The hangar was at the end of a long corridor. The door was massive, made of thick metal that had turned brown with age. Warning signs covered it in 3 different languages. Una did not read any of them. She pressed the chip against the lock and waited. Nothing happened for a long moment. Then something clicked deep inside the door. Machines that had been sleeping for 2 centuries began to move. The door groaned and shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Slowly the door slid open. Cold air rushed out, carrying a smell that Yuna did not recognize. It was not the smell of rot or chemicals. It was something else. Something old but clean, like a room that had been carefully preserved. Taeho turned on his flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness and found something that made them both stop breathing. It was a ship, not a small shuttle or a broken transport. This was a real ship, massive and beautiful, filling the entire hangar. Its hull was smooth and dark, without a single scratch or dent. It looked like it had been built yesterday, not 200 years ago. The design was nothing like modern ships. It was elegant, with long curves and sharp angles that seemed to flow together like water. Yuna stepped forward. Her boots made no sound on the clean floor. She looked up at the ship and felt something strange in her chest. It was like finding something she had lost a long time ago, something she had forgotten she was looking for. What is this? Taeho whispered. Yun walked to the side of the ship. There, near the front, she found words carved into the hull. They were written in old Korean script, the kind that her grandmother used to write before she died. Chiang, Nyong. Blue. Dragon. Yuna touched the letters with her fingers. The metal was warm, as if the ship was alive. And then, deep inside the ship, something began to hum. 3 days passed. Yuna and Taeho did not sleep much. They spent every hour inside the hangar, walking around the ship, looking for a way in. The hull was perfect, without any visible door or hatch. It was like the ship had been sealed from the inside. On the 4th day, Hana arrived. She was young, maybe 22, with short hair that she had dyed purple. She wore a long coat with many pockets, and each pocket held some kind of tool or device. Her fingers were always moving, always touching something. She had been born on a station like this one, and she had learned to survive by being smarter than everyone else. "So this is it," she said, standing in front of the ship. "This is what you bought for 3 credits. Can you open it?" Yuna asked. Hana smiled. "I can open anything." She walked around the ship twice, running her hands along the hull. She stopped near the center and pressed her palm flat against the metal. Her other hand held a small device with a screen. "There is a system inside," she said. "It is old. Very old. But it is still running." "How old?" Taeho asked. Hana looked at her screen for a long moment. Her face became serious. 400 years. Yuna felt cold. 400 years ago, humanity had left Earth. The first exodus. 12 great ships had carried millions of people across the stars to build new homes. 11 ships had reached their destinations. 1 ship had disappeared and was never found. "That is impossible," Taeho said. "Those ships were huge. They were kilometers long. This ship is big, but not that big. It is not one of the main colony ships," Hana said slowly. She was still reading data on her screen. "It is a support vessel. A colony seed ship. It carried supplies, technology, and genetic material for the new worlds." Yuna stepped closer to the ship. "What happened to it? Why is it here?" Hana shook her head. "The records are locked. The encryption is stronger than anything I have seen. But there is a name in the system. The ship is called Cheongyong. And there is something else." "What?" "An AI, a very advanced artificial intelligence. It is still active, but it is sleeping, waiting for something." Yuna put her hand on the hull again. The metal was still warm. "Can you wake it up?" Hana bit her lip. "I can try." She worked for 6 hours. Her fingers danced across her devices, sending signals, breaking through layers of protection. Taiho brought food and water, but Hana barely touched them. Sweat ran down her face. Her eyes never left her screens. Finally, something happened. A line of light appeared on the hull. It spread slowly, forming the shape of a door. The door slid open without a sound, revealing a corridor inside the ship. The walls were smooth and white, glowing with soft light. A voice came from inside. It was the voice of an old woman, calm and gentle. "Who comes to wake the Cheongyong?" Yuna looked at Taiho and Hana. Then she stepped forward into the ship. "My name is Yuna. I bought this hangar. I found your ship." The voice was silent for a moment. "You are human?" "Yes. How long has it been?" Yuna swallowed. 400 years. Another silence, longer this time. Then the voice spoke again. "I am the ship's artificial intelligence. The crew called me grandmother. I have been waiting for a long time." Yuna walked deeper into the ship. The corridor led to a large room filled with screens and controls. Everything looked new, as if time had not touched it. In the center of the room, a hologram appeared. It showed the face of an old woman with white hair and kind eyes. "What is this ship?" Yuna asked. "Why was it hidden here?" Grandmother's hologram looked at her with an expression that might have been sadness. "The Jianyang was part of the first exodus. We were carrying supplies to the colony worlds. Seeds, medicines, machines for building new cities, and something more. What else? Technology from old Earth, weapons, knowledge. Things that the founders wanted to protect. Things that could save humanity or destroy it." Taiho had followed Yuna inside. He looked at the screens on the walls. Numbers and images flashed across them. "This cargo is worth a fortune. The gene banks alone could feed 100 worlds." Grandmother nodded slowly. "Yes, but the ship was hidden for a reason. During the Exodus, we found something in deep space. Something dangerous. The captain decided to hide the Cheongyang rather than risk leading that danger back to the colonies." "What did you find?" Hana asked. She was already touching the controls, reading data. "I cannot show you yet. My full systems are locked. I need a crew before I can fully wake. I need people who will protect what this ship carries." Yuna looked at the hologram. "What kind of people?" "Worthy ones. People who understand what humanity lost and what it can become again." Before Yuna could answer, Hana made a sharp sound. "We have a problem. What is it?" Hana pointed at one of her devices. "Someone intercepted my signal when I was breaking into the ship. The data went out to the station network. Someone knows what we found." Yuna felt her stomach drop. "Who?" The answer came the next morning. A message arrived on Yuna's communication device. It was from Consul Voss. "I know what you have found, little human. I will give you 50 million credits for the ship. This is a fair offer. You should accept it." Yuna read the message 3 times. 50 million credits was more money than she could imagine. She could buy her own station. She could live like a queen for the rest of her life. She looked at the ship. She looked at grandmother's hologram, still waiting patiently in the center of the room. Then she typed her answer. No, the reply came in seconds. "That is a mistake. You do not want me as an enemy." Yuna turned off her device. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady when she spoke to Taiho and Hana. "We need to find a crew. Fast." Finding the right people was not easy. Grandmother had rules. She would not fully wake until the crew met her standards. She needed a pilot, an engineer, and people who understood what humanity had lost. The first exodus was not just about survival, Grandmother explained. It was about hope. The people who built this ship believed that humanity could be better. They believed we could learn from our mistakes. I need a crew that still believes this. Yuna thought about everyone she knew. Most of them were just trying to survive. They worked long hours for little pay. They did not think about hope or the future. They thought about food and rent and staying alive one more day. But there were a few people who were different. She found Woojin in a bar on deck 7. He was sitting alone in the corner, drinking something brown from a dirty glass. He was about 40 years old, with gray in his hair and scars on his hands. His eyes were tired but sharp. Woojin had been a pilot in the Human Defense Corps. He was one of the best. But 5 years ago, his commanders ordered him to bomb a civilian station. The station was supposed to be empty, but Woojin knew it was not. He refused the order. They discharged him and erased his record. Now he flew cargo ships for criminals and drank to forget. Yuna sat down across from him. "I need a pilot." Woojin laughed. It was not a happy sound. "Find someone else. I am done flying. I found a ship. A real ship. From the first Exodus." He stopped laughing. His eyes became serious. "That is not possible. Come and see for yourself." He came. When he saw the Qiangyong, he stood very still for a long time. Then he touched the hull with his hand, the way Yuna had done. "I thought all these ships were gone," he said quietly. "I thought we had lost everything. Will you fly it?" He looked at her. "Why me?" "There are better pilots. Pilots without broken records." Yuna smiled. "Grandmother says she needs people who did the right thing even when it was hard. You refused to kill innocents. That is why." Woojin was silent for a moment. Then he nodded. "I will fly your ship." The engineer was harder to find. Grandmother said she needed someone who understood First Exodus technology. That kind of knowledge was rare. Most of it had been lost over the centuries. Hannah found her in the station's medical ward. Her name was Nari. She was 80 years old, with white hair and hands that shook slightly when she moved. But her mind was sharp, and her eyes were bright. Nari had worked on First Exodus maintenance ships when she was a child. Her parents had been engineers who kept the old machines running. She had learned everything from them before they died. Now she spent her days in the medical ward, waiting for the end. When Yuna told her about the Xiangyang, Nari cried. "I never thought I would see one again," she said, wiping her eyes. "I was 6 years old when I first saw a ship like this. My mother lifted me up so I could touch the hull. She said these ships were our future. Can you help us? Can you understand the systems?" Nari smiled. It made her look young again. "My dear girl, I have been waiting my whole life for this." They brought her to the hangar in a wheelchair. When she saw the ship, she stood up on her weak legs and walked toward it by herself. She ran her wrinkled hands over the controls and screens like she was greeting old friends. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I remember. I remember all of it." Grandmother's hologram appeared. The old AI and the old engineer looked at each other for a long moment. "Welcome aboard," Grandmother said. Hannah joined the crew because she had no choice. The signal she had sent when breaking into the ship had been traced. Consul Voss knew she was involved. There was a price on her head now. If she stayed on the station, she would be dead within a week. "I was going to ask you to join anyway," Yuna told her. "We need someone who can handle the computers." Hannah shrugged. "I guess I always knew I would die for something stupid. At least this is interesting." That left Taiho. He had been with Yuna from the beginning, but he was not sure he belonged on a starship. His mechanical leg was old and slow. He was not a pilot or an engineer or a hacker. He was just a man who fixed things. "You do not have to come," Yuna told him. "This is dangerous. You could stay here. Find a safe place." Taiho looked at her with his kind eyes. "You are my sister. Where you go, I go. That is simple." Grandmother accepted him without question. "A ship needs someone who repairs what is broken," she said. "Not just machines. People too." With the crew assembled, Grandmother began to wake fully. Systems that had been sleeping for 400 years came back to life. Lights turned on in every corridor. Engines hummed deep in the belly of the ship. The Jiangyang was waking up Dot, but Grandmother had one more thing to show them. Dot. She led them to a sealed room in the center of the ship. Inside, there were screens showing star charts and strange symbols. During the first exodus, we found something, Grandmother said. A signal from deep space. Something old and powerful. The captain believed it was dangerous. She chose to hide the ship rather than risk leading it back to the colonies. What was it? Yuna asked. The screen showed an image. It was dark and hard to see, but it looked like a vast shape moving through space. Something that was not natural. Something that was waiting. We do not know, but the signal is still out there, and recently it has become stronger. Grandmother looked at each of them. The Jiangyang was built to protect humanity. That is still our mission. Will you accept it? Yuna looked at her crew. Woojin, the broken pilot. Nari, the old engineer. Hannah, the young hacker. Taiho, the loyal brother. Yes, she said. We accept. Outside the hangar, Consul Voss was gathering his forces. But inside, a crew of 5 forgotten humans was preparing to wake a dragon. The attack came at midnight. Yuna was sleeping in one of the ship's small cabins when the alarm started. Red lights flashed. Grandmother's voice filled the corridor. Intruders on deck. Armed forces. They are coming. Yuna grabbed her jacket and ran to the bridge. The others were already there. Woojin sat at the pilot's controls, his hands moving over the screens. Hannah was typing fast on her devices. Taiho held a heavy tool that could be used as a weapon. Only Nari was calm. She stood next to Grandmother's hologram, watching the screens. How many? Yuna asked. 30 soldiers, Hannah said. Consul Voss sent his best mercenaries. They are cutting through the hangar door now. On the screen, Yuna could see the sparks flying from the hangar entrance. The soldiers wore black armor and carried weapons that glowed with energy. They were not playing games. They had come to take the ship, and they did not care who they killed. The engines are not ready, Woojin said. Grandmother needs more time to wake the full systems. How much time? 20 minutes. 20 minutes. The mercenaries would be inside in 5. Yuna made a decision. Taiho, can you slow them down? Her brother nodded. His face was serious, but not afraid. I can try. Hannah, help him. Use the station systems against them. Lock doors, cut power, whatever you can do. Hannah smiled. It was a dangerous smile. I have been waiting to cause trouble. They ran out of the ship together. Yuna wanted to go with them, but she knew her place was on the bridge. She had to be ready when the ship was ready. Taiho and Hannah reached the hangar entrance just as the soldiers broke through. The first mercenary stepped inside and immediately fell. Taiho had welded a metal plate to the floor at an angle. The soldier tripped and crashed into the soldiers behind him. Hannah's fingers flew over her device. The lights in the hangar went out. Emergency lights came on, weak and red. In the darkness, the mercenaries could not see well. But Taiho had grown up on stations like this. He knew how to move in the dark. He grabbed pipes and threw them. He knocked out lights and created obstacles. He was not a fighter, but he was smart. Every second he bought was a second the ship needed. Hannah crashed the station's security system. Doors all over the lower deck began opening and closing randomly. The mercenaries could not bring in reinforcements because the corridors kept changing. She laughed as she worked, enjoying the chaos she was creating. But the mercenaries were professionals. They adapted quickly. They used their weapons to blast through obstacles. They shot at anything that moved. A blast hit the wall near Taiho. He fell back, his mechanical legs sparking. Hannah grabbed him and pulled him behind a container. "We need to go," she said. Now, on the bridge, Woojin watched the clock. 15 minutes had passed. The engines were humming louder now. Systems were coming online one by one. "Almost there," Grandmother said. "I need 5 more minutes." The hangar door exploded inward. 20 mercenaries poured into the space, their weapons raised. They saw the ship and stopped. Even they were surprised by its beauty. Consul Voss walked in behind them. He was taller than any human, with green scales that shimmered in the emergency lights. His yellow eyes looked at the Qiangyong with hunger. "Beautiful," he said. His voice was smooth and cold. "I offered you 50 million credits, little human. You could have lived well. Now you will die poor." Taiho and Hannah ran back to the ship. The entrance was still open. They dove inside just as the mercenaries started shooting. Energy blasts hit the hull but did not scratch it. "The ship can take their weapons," Grandmother said. "But we cannot stay here. They will bring heavier guns." Woojin looked at Yuna. 2 minutes. "I need 2 minutes." Consul Voss shouted orders. His soldiers brought out cutting tools and explosives. They began attaching them to the ship's hull, looking for weak points. 1 minute. The engines roared. The ship began to shake. The mercenaries stepped back, confused. "What is happening?" Voss demanded. 30 seconds. Grandmother spoke over the ship's external speakers. Her voice was calm but powerful. "This is the Qiangyong. We are leaving. Move or be destroyed." The mercenaries did not move fast enough. Woojin pulled the controls. The ship rose straight up, smashing through the hangar ceiling like it was made of paper. Metal and stone flew in all directions. The mercenaries scattered, screaming. Consul Voss dove behind a container, his yellow eyes wide with rage. The Qiangyong tore through deck after deck, rising through the station like a bullet through water. Alarms screamed everywhere. People ran for safety. The station shook with the force of the ship's escape, and then they were out. They were in space. The station fell away behind them. The stars stretched out in every direction. For a moment, everyone on the bridge was silent. "We did it," Hannah whispered. "We actually did it." But Grandmother's voice was serious. "Consul Voss is sending a message. He's broadcasting your identity across every network. You are now criminals. The hegemony will hunt you." Yuna looked at the screen. She saw her own face displayed with the words, "Wanted. Dangerous. Reward for capture." "Let them come," she said. Grandmother nodded. "Before they do, there is something you should know. The Jianyang was not just a supply ship. It was a failsafe. A weapon of last resort." "What do you mean?" The screens changed. They showed a map of the galaxy with 7 points marked in red. These are the locations of hidden human colonies. Outposts that went silent during the wars. Everyone believes they are dead. They are not. They are waiting. Yuna stared at the map. 7 colonies. Thousands of humans who had been forgotten. The Qiangyong was built to find them, Grandmother continued. To unite them. To give humanity a second chance. Woojin looked at Yuna. Taiho looked at her. Hannah and Nari looked at her. They were all waiting. Yuna touched the screen, selecting the first colony on the map. "Then that is what we will do." The Jiangyong turned toward the stars and began to fly. The first colony was on a frozen moon called Baram. It orbited a dead planet in a system that most maps did not show. Grandmother said 12,000 humans had lived there when the signal was lost 200 years ago. Nobody knew if they were still alive. The journey took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of running from hegemony patrols. 3 weeks of hiding in asteroid fields and jumping through unstable space gates. Woojin flew the ship like it was part of his body. He found paths that no modern pilot would try. He trusted grandmother's old maps when everyone else said they were wrong. The hegemony does not know these routes, grandmother explained. They only remember the safe paths. The first exodus knew many others. They reached Baram on a cold morning. The moon was white and gray, covered in ice and rock. There were no lights visible from space. No signals. No signs of life. Maybe they are all dead, Hannah said quietly. Una shook her head. Grandmother says the colony was built underground. We need to land and look. They landed the Cheongyang on a flat plain of ice. The wind outside was strong and cold. Una put on a thick suit and walked down the ramp with Taiho beside her dot. The ice stretched out in every direction. There was nothing but white and gray as far as they could see. The wind made a sound like crying. Where do we start? Taiho asked. Before Una could answer, something moved in the ice. A section of ground slid open, and a figure climbed out. It was a human woman wearing a patched suit. She held a weapon that looked very old. Stop there, the woman said. Her voice was rough, like she had not spoken to strangers in a long time. Who are you? How did you find us? Una raised her hand slowly. My name is Una. I came from Outpost Kira 7. I found a ship called the Cheongyang. It told me you were here. The woman froze. Her weapon lowered slightly. The Cheongyang? That is not possible. That ship disappeared 400 years ago. I know. I found it. I bought it for 3 credits at an auction. The woman stared at her. Then she started to laugh. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had stopped believing in miracles. 3 credits, she said. You bought our salvation for 3 credits. She led them underground. The tunnels were narrow and cold, lit by old lamps that flickered. But as they went deeper, the tunnels became wider. The lights became brighter. And then they entered a great cave. 12,000 people lived in that cave. They had built homes from metal and stone. They had farms under artificial lights. They had schools and hospitals and workshops. They had survived for 200 years, forgotten by the galaxy dot when the people saw Una and her crew. They gathered in the central square. They were thin and tired, but their eyes were alive. They had not given up. An old man walked forward. He was their leader. His name was Dong Su, and his grandfather had been one of the original colonists. We thought no one would ever come, Dong Su said. His voice shook with emotion. We thought we were alone. Una looked at all the faces watching her. Children, old people, families who had held on to hope for generations. You are not alone, she said. And you were never forgotten. There are 6 more colonies like yours. We are going to find them all. The people of Baram began to cry. Some fell to their knees. Others hugged each other. 200 years of fear and loneliness broke apart in that moment. But the celebration did not last long. Grandmother's voice came through Una's communicator. Consul Voss has found us. His fleet is entering the system. 12 warships. They will be here in 1 hour. Una ran back to the ship with her crew. On the bridge, they could see the hegemony fleet on the screen. 12 ships, each one bigger than the Cheongyang. Each one armed with weapons that could crack a moon. We cannot fight them, Woojin said. Not directly. We do not need to fight, Grandmother said. We need to run. I know a path through this system that leads to a space gate the hegemony does not know about. But the path is dangerous. The old charts say it is unstable. Woojin smiled. It was the first real smile Una had seen from him. Unstable is my specialty. The Jianyang rose from the ice and flew toward the stars. Behind them, the hegemony fleet gave chase. Consul Voss sent a message to every screen on the ship. You cannot escape, little human. Give me the ship, and I will let your friends live." Yuna did not answer. She just nodded to Wujin. He flew them into the asteroid field. The rocks were thick and fast, spinning in patterns that seemed impossible to predict. The hegemony ships followed, but they were slower. They were too big. They could not turn as fast. One ship hit an asteroid and exploded. Then another. Then a third. Consul Voss screamed orders, but it was too late. Wujin was dancing through the field like he had been born there. Grandmother guided him with 400-year-old data, showing him paths that no one else could see. They reached the hidden space gate. It was small and dark, almost invisible against the black of space. The hegemony ships could not follow. They were too large to fit through. The Cheongyang jumped, and the stars stretched into lines of light. They were safe. News of the escape spread fast. A human girl had found a legendary ship. She had outrun the hegemony. She had discovered a lost colony. The story was told on 100 stations, in 1,000 bars, in every place where humans gathered. People began to talk about hope again. Yuna stood on the bridge of the Cheongyang, looking at the star map. 6 more colonies waited. 6 more groups of forgotten humans who needed to know they were not alone. Taiho stood beside her, his mechanical leg clicking softly. Hannah was already planning their next move. Wujing was plotting a course to the second colony. Nari hummed an old song from Earth that her mother had taught her. Grandmother's hologram appeared. The old AI looked at her new captain with something like pride. "The exodus never ended, Captain," Grandmother said. "We simply forgot we were still walking." Yuna smiled. For the first time in her life, she knew exactly where she was going. "Then let us remind them." She pressed the button, and the Cheongyang jumped to light speed. The stars blurred. The ship hummed with power and purpose. Somewhere in the galaxy, Consul Voss was planning his revenge. Somewhere, the strange signal from deep space was growing stronger. Somewhere, dangers waited that Yuna could not imagine. But in that moment, none of it mattered. In that moment, there was only the ship, the crew, and the stars. The dragon was flying again. And nothing in the universe could stop it.